You're listening to Squatch Talks Podcast. Real stories and real encounters told by real researchers. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Drum roll, please. Hey, Squatchers. Here we are in the Pine Barrens. The band is back together, and we are once again remote camping off the grid. So we are in a spot that Brian, Nathan's brother-in-law, not this Brian, you might recall this Brian though.
And Skylar's dad.
Skylar's dad remote viewed this location and said we might have, not a visual, but we might hear some strange things, and he said not what we might expect. So
yeah, we're going to question some things.
We're going to question. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But hey, we got Skylar from Pennsylvania, and my brother Brian from another mother, Spinner from New York, of course me, and my other brother Nathan from PA, and Art behind the camera. Hello. And we are out here. The night is young. We are set up. The grill is going. The pizza's flowing.
That's right.
And I'll tell you, I'm excited. I hadn't planned on staying out tonight, but I got an unexpected surprise from these guys coming down. So I think Brian and Nathan are car camping, right?
Definitely car camping tonight,
And
yes.
Skylar and I are going to be out in the tents. And hopefully I'll have a repeat of what happened in PA with something coming up on me, and also in New York at your expedition. Just love it when something comes walking up on me at 4 or 5 in the morning.
They like your smell.
I guess, by the time,
They do.
after a good night's squatching, I kind of resemble one of them. But hey, this is what we're talking about on Squatch Talks, is taking you with us, the viewers, and showing you what it's like to go out on expedition or out in the forest looking for Sasquatch. So thanks for squatching. This is great to be out here with you guys again. It was only a week ago. We were up in Pennsylvania on the Bfro expedition, right? And I was so excited to have the 2022 Squatch Calling Champion join us. So Brian, congrats to you, brother.
Thank you, sir.
I
Thank
toast you on your accomplishment, and thank you for deciding to join us rather than defend your title. But
Yes.
I did see some footage, and I think a woman won it this year, as a matter
A
of
woman
fact.
won it.
Right?
Okay. I don't know. I didn't see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Paul Bartholomew had posted some stuff on his page. So I'm not sure, who it was, but it seemed like it was a nice event. We're going to have to make plans to go up there next year.
Next year.
Take it back.
Yes.
All right.
Plan the expedition
I'll plan accordingly.
accordingly. Yes.
And what we can do is maybe hook up with Patty and camp up there.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean? Kind of coordinate everything.
Private.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
I think
honey hole.
that could be fun.
This location was found by not me, Brian, Skylar's dad.
Mm-hmm.
He did some remote viewing, and he pinpointed on a map, which is probably about 300 yards that way. And we figured we'd come and check it out. And this is, we could get a little closer to it, but I figured we'd stay off in the distance,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Maybe make our way quietly up there at some point. See if anything
No doubt.
goes on.
We'll leave the LDR recording while we go off. Okay. That way,
Right.
if something does come into camp while we're gone, to maybe snack on those burgers, We'll
Had some
capture
very
it.
strange occurrence happening when we first got here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. Well, Skylar and Nate saw what they looked like a light-colored horse.
Gray, right? If I'm not
Like
mistaken.
grayish, yeah. And they both saw it. Nate saw it, looked once, saw it, and he's like, "Tell me if I'm crazy, but I just am I seeing a horse over there?" Skylar confirmed what he saw, right?
Oh yeah, all I saw was a gray flash, which confirmed the same color at least.
But you know what a horse looks
Oh,
like,
yeah.
though. I mean,
Yeah.
so did you see fur?
I didn't see fur necessarily, but what I saw was just moving. So all I saw was the gray kind of going past the trees.
Because there was a sighting in this area in 2017 of a gray Sasquatch.
Okay.
And it was I would assume an older one, based on the witness, recount. It came running out after a herd of deer, right across Route 70,
Okay.
and it stopped at the shoulder. It was November, so it was cold out. It was 6:30 in the morning, and this thing stopped, and it was breathing heavy, and they could see the breath coming out of its mouth.
Hmm.
And the deer had run across the road, so they had slowed. They were about 50 yards away. They had slowed the truck they were in. They said that in the truck, as they had then slowed to like a stop, they were the same height as it, and then it turned towards them around and walked back into the woods. And neither of these guys, they were workers going to work, and
Yeah.
neither of them had ever given much thought to Bigfoot before.
Right.
But after that, they were like, what the heck was that?
Yeah.
And they reported it to the Bfro's website. And so I followed up with them, and they seemed real credible. Their families were mocking them, making fun of them, kind of like,
Our families.
our families did. Yeah.
Well, this wasn't gray like this gray.
No,
This was gray like,
darker.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm talking about. And this particular individual was darker gray with some patches of white and brown.
Yeah.
So again, if you only caught a glimpse of it moving, they're quick. I mean, even at that
Oh yeah.
advanced age, they
Well,
can still move.
We did find a set of possible trackways, 2 sets of possible trackways that led in that direction. One down the road here, and we also, after Nate left, Skylar and I took a walk back in this direction to see if we found any prints from what they possibly saw. And there was a couple of very faint game trails back there, but nothing with any that yielded really any tracks. There was nothing distinct of anything big going through there, really.
Right.
So it was interesting that,
What direction did you see it in, Nate?
It was right over there.
My 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we
Wow.
roughly estimated probably about, well, when we walked back there, Skylar judged how far he could see the cars to where he would have saw it, and that put us about 70 yards in
That's not
this
bad.
way.
That's
So,
how far my sighting was in BC. So
Uh-huh.
you can have a clear visual at that distance.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, that's encouraging.
I keep trying to make it that it was a deer, but we saw the deer on the way back, and when I was going out, I saw 4 or 5 deer. This was not even close to the same color or the same size.
Yeah, I was gonna say from where I saw the flash of gray, it was definitely too high to be a deer.
Yeah, no, and that's why I kept saying it was a horse.
Yeah.
Just because there's no way it was a deer because it was just too big.
Well, we did see there was kind of obvious horse hoof prints
Yeah.
in the sand here on the road. But then there was also other kinds of prints, that didn't quite look like it. There was one that looked like even canine.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking, well, if you think about the Jersey Devil and the reports of the Jersey
I
Devil,
was just going to say that. Yeah.
right? There's a
Hoof prints.
horse-like head
And hoof prints.
and hoof prints. Yeah.
Oh,
And
wow.
The hoof prints didn't even line up with like 4 legs.
Yeah.
It really didn't.
They were almost
Yeah.
like, not straight lines,
Uh-huh.
but they were kind of like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was.
I don't know. I'm not looking forward to having an encounter with the Jersey Devil.
Hey, why not?
I just think it's great, like I was saying, that we're all back together a week after the expedition. I'll tell you, we had some activity. I'm very satisfied. And you, my friend, did a great job hanging out there at base camp and
That's right. Somebody had to sit still.
keeping the fire tending. But that's funny, though, on that last night, right? You were out and about. You got back just as we were heading out.
Yep.
And you decided to stay back at base camp with Nate and Terry. Heather had come out for a little while, but she was in her tent, in our tent, reading, and something huffed at her or growled at her.
It was 2 growls, 2 distinct growls.
Yeah.
I honestly thought she was snoring. I was like, wow, I didn't know she snored that loud.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But she, right after it happened, she came walking out.
Okay.
And I said, what, did we wake you up? And she said, no, I was awake. I was like, oh, that wasn't you snoring.
Yeah, no.
She said, yeah, got growled at twice. There was two.
And she said she heard some movement also.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's funny, that's the one time I didn't use the LDR, right? I didn't have a recorder going back at base camp,
Yeah.
but I did have the trail camera set up behind my tent, but kind of far back.
Yeah.
So I didn't get anything on the trail camera either.
No.
But how cool is it that she was reading? She said, I just looked up like this and went back to the, you know what I mean? Like she wasn't even scared.
No.
There's so much to talk about when it comes to this
Expedition.
expedition. Yeah.
We just might have to get together and do a little wrap-up expedition segment.
Hey, I mean, we can talk
On-
about it right now.
We can
On
talk
Site
about it now.
5.
Yeah, right.
Go
Yeah.
over it on Site 5. That would be fun.
That would be fun.
Yeah, right on site. So,
I'll tell you what. I thought, for me personally, one of the best.
oh shit.
I will say, usually I'm up in my head, you know, as organizers, you both know. You want to make sure the attendees have something to kind of leave with feeling satisfied.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm always, especially when it's a long-distance exped, I'm always, like, you know, worried I'm going to forget something. I was totally chill, even before. Like, I didn't get stressed at all. I was getting there late. Like, you know?
Yeah.
The night before, I was getting grief from Heather because she was having a hissy fit about something. And literally, I was like, I would have been there tonight had I known you weren't coming, you know?
Yeah.
And Brian's already there. But I got up there, she got off work, and we got up there, like, you know, when I said I would.
Yeah.
Patty had it under control, you were there.
We were holding down the fort, man.
It was freaking awesome.
You had nothing to worry about.
Nothing.
Well, I had got there on Wednesday night.
Hmm.
Skylar and Brian were there before me. They were in their
Really?
tent.
I didn't even know that.
Yep. Yep. I got there around midnight, set up my tent, and just sat listening with my recorder. And I was hearing, so there's a road that's adjacent to the campsite that kind of goes back, you know, into the woods along with the other trails there. And from that road, it sounded like there was something. I called it the apneic cow. Because it did.
Yeah.
It sounded like something was. And then really fast. And then it was a moo. It was like a. It was the weirdest. I could not place it. And then there was some high pitch involved with it.
Yeah.
There was like type noise that was coming from the same
Wow.
area. And I'm like, is it a moose? Is it a elk?
I
Like,
gotta
what
say-
is this thing?
As strange as that is, he's spot on, and I hear it on that road all the time.
Really?
Every time we're up there, just about you hear it.
And there was that guy, right, who goes up there and what do they call that? The guy who hears
Oh, the mountain screamers.
the mountain screamers,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, that's up the mountain from base camp. But that was the first night, and I heard it for a good 45 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just on and off. And Skylar heard it. Brian didn't hear it. But they had gotten up at one point, and it happened just before that to go to the bathroom.
Right.
And then it kind of died out. But it was very confusing. I could not place it at all. And even if I went online, I don't think I could find. I wouldn't even know what to search for when it came to sounds to relate to it.
Right. Nobody had a recorder going.
My recorder was going.
Okay.
And I could definitely bring it up at some point because I definitely, I
Awesome.
have it. So
Nice.
yeah, in the future, get to that.
Because I always tell you, turn on your recorder when you get out of your truck.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, and it's easy to find because it's right in the beginning. So
Perfect.
Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah. But then the second night, like you were just talking about, right?
Yeah.
You arrived late. Thursday during the day, nothing eventful,
Okay.
really. You know, I think some people did some scouting.
And then, of course, we did
Yeah.
the usual MO is to have the Pied Piper.
Right.
So we had the three teams, the hunker down team, which we had positioned at a right where we went off the main trail to go down the ATV trails, and we had two teams go down the trail. Patty took, I think, the ladies, and I think Craig maybe went with them, and then I took Brian and Skylar and Mike,
I think it was Mike.
right, on my team down the other trail where we had some strange sounds the year prior. It started raining though around 11-ish.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily rain. Like I looked on radar and there was no clouds or anything indicating rain. I think it was our elevation. We were up in the clouds.
Right.
You know what I mean? So then of course the hunker down group decided, oh, we're getting wet. We're going to go back to base camp. And then very shortly after that, Patty and her team left. But that's because one of the women got zapped.
Right.
And that's the same spot where your daughter Crystal has had some,
2 years in
two
a row.
years in a row has felt odd and gets her, stomach thing going on, right?
Crystal, Kira.
Yep.
Who was the one last year?
Well, it was, I don't remember who it was last year, but this year it was Ashley.
Right.
And she's actually in the military. And I'll tell you what, she talked about it when we got back to base camp that night, and she told me she's been shot at under, incoming, and she was never as afraid as she was then.
Yeah. Yeah. So she definitely had an experience. You could tell it really shook her up, confused her a bit.
Yeah.
And thinking about that and discussing it with Nate and Skylar, it was like looking on the maps. A ley line runs right through.
Base
A
camp.
major ley line runs right through the base camp area. It's, let's just say the ley line itself and what surrounds it it's a ley line doesn't just encompass one little area. It's widespread through a certain area,
Sure.
right? So it's interesting because there's a ley line, a major ley line that runs through base camp and also through Camp 5.
Right.
It kind of runs in that same direction. And we were thinking about the people that got zapped. Okay. Kira, Crystal, somebody's from last year expedition, and Ashley from this one. And then also, Nate and I had taken a walk back there. And we were in proximity, right, of where they had supposedly gotten zapped or
Right.
whatever had happened. And Nate, like, what did you start feeling? Because I can say what my impression was.
Well, I was lightheaded, and I didn't know which direction was back down to the trail, which never ever happens to me. I was completely disoriented. I didn't know which way was what,
Right.
and I don't ever get like that.
Yeah. Yeah, he got to one certain spot. It was almost like a crossroad.
Yeah.
And he instantly got like lightheaded and it was like,
Yeah, it was. It was like right in the middle of the four-way
right.
of the trails.
Yep.
Wow.
And so it was in this general proximity of where people have been having these experiences, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, due to all the quartz and all the granite that it runs so heavily through there, that there's probably heavy veins of it that would provide heavier energy,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Coming from these energetic ley lines, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And an area like that could cause people to feel, especially if you're hypersensitive, to feel physically, ill or off from it.
I wonder if that ley line goes through Dead Woman's Hollow also.
I think it encompasses a lot,
probably
that
would.
whole bottom part of Michaud. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that had anything to do with when, my team got zapped and I saw that headlamp off the trail.
Right.
And both Jeff and I felt our guts twisted, and Tony had that thing pressing up against his forehead.
Right.
You know,
Right.
weird. But
Yeah.
again, that's based on the fact that it's energetic as opposed to Sasquatch related.
Right. And in areas like that,
Mm-hmm.
some of the theories out there would say that in those high energy places, there could be, let's say, a portal of some sort, or even better, for me to put it, the veil is thin. The veil between dimensions, right, would be thinner in that spot,
Wow.
and the energy coming from that could cause such things, you know.
It's possible, I guess.
Or there could be things on the other side of the veil, you know, that we can't see that are zapping us, you know, or something like that.
Right.
But that kind of makes the most sense in my mind, you know, because when scouted, that area did not provide any type of shelter or cover, or it didn't seem like an area where they would be hunkered down all the time for when people go back there and follow to that same exact spot
Yeah.
and be like, you know, so I think there's something different when it comes to that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's going to require more investigation
Totally.
on our part, you know.
Yeah.
But the following night, though, we did go to a different base camp
Right.
that I had reserved as well, like we've done in the past, and we actually scouted it during the day, and even during the day, we were having some knocks and some potential sightings. I mean, there was a couple of attendees that thought they saw movement, right?
Right.
Well, when we had first got there, I was one of them.
Yeah.
It was me, Patty, Ashley,
Mm-hmm.
and who else was with us? Were you with us, Skylar?
I don't. Not
No,
even
no,
during
no.
the daytime. No.
Mike.
Mike. Mm-hmm.
Mike was with us.
Yep.
And as soon as we got there, we walked down to where the fire pit and table was.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking in this direction because I was preoccupied with something else. And they said they saw something, a good size, go through the brush
Real quick.
back real quick, right? And then we played with Patty's app for a little bit. She's like, you know what? I just feel like something is telling me to pull this out, right?
Yeah.
So she's got the app that scans through frequencies and it says words.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what it's called,
Yep.
but
It's called the Necropa.
necro something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's spitting out words. We're asking questions, and then we said something about our names, and it clearly said
Ashley.
Ashley.
Yeah.
It said Brian. It said Patty, but it didn't. I don't know if it said Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was a little creepy, out being in the woods and hearing that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I took a walk before we left back into the area where they had seen
Mm-hmm.
something go through the brush real quick, and I think I had found a trackway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. What I investigated closely was a good 4 or 5 steps,
Mm-hmm.
and it was compelling enough, you know, and that was pretty much it for the daytime
Well,
scouting.
then I showed up with Heather and Craig, and we had a couple of knocks while
Did
we
we
were
have
there.
knocks when we were there? Okay, so I must have
Yeah.
missed that. Right.
Yeah, because
Right.
you were walking down and checking out that, but we definitely heard a couple of knocks.
Probably because he broke off from the group.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
Oh, right. Right, because I was
Yeah.
coming closer out. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then that night,
That's a whole different story.
then that night when we went there, everybody gathered around the fire pit. We had a fire going.
There's about, what, 17, 18 of us or something like that?
16, I think, at that point.
16? Yeah.
Because Heather was back at camp.
Right.
But yeah, we had everybody kind of just gathered by the fire, talking, and not being real quiet, just acting natural.
Right.
And then we split into 3 teams. And you took a team down that trail.
Wait, before we go there,
Yeah.
before we split off,
Okay.
I myself had split off from the group and went down into the woods
Right.
and was just standing there quietly. No lights, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's up at the fire bullshitting and talking and, having a good time. And I see, well, first of all, I had heard a snap,
Mhm.
and then I heard a thump, or two possibly. I don't recall that.
Okay.
And then I look probably about, I want to say I was probably around 60 to 70 yards away. I could see a dark figure. Prior to this, I had told the spirits of the woods,
Mhm.
I was just kind of talking out loud to them, saying, I'm not going to shine my light on you. I'm here, saying all these positive things.
Non-threatening.
Non-threatening, putting my intentions out there to, kind of let it know that it can feel comfortable around me and explore us more so. And one of the conditions was I wasn't going to shine my light or, my camera
Mm-hmm.
in its direction.
Right.
So, and I don't know why I just didn't break the code. I didn't break the intention, but that's what I did. I
Okay.
observed what I saw. A black figure, was not large. I would say if it stood up, which I did not see it do at that time, it would have to be somewhere between 5 and 6 feet tall. What I did see it do was it was crouched down, and like I was saying before, it was almost like a sprinter in a race that was getting ready in position before the gun shot off, right?
Yep.
It was kind of down like that, and at times it seemed like it was peaking up and then getting lower. And it was observing, from what I could see in its position of its body, everybody up at the campfire.
Wow.
And it being in my sight, it did not observe me. I don't think it knew I was there.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I observed it for a while and decided to walk back up to the campfire. And when I do, Craig was there with his night vision camera.
Mm-hmm.
Or it was a thermal. I can't remember what it was.
Mm-hmm.
He said, there's something over in that corner, that's hot, that looked like it was, watching you go back up here or whatever.
Wow.
And I said, yeah, I know. And then everybody else starts walking and kind of splitting off from the group,
Mm-hmm.
right, and doing their own little observations and stuff. And people were hearing movement going on over in the same direction, right?
Right.
So,
And then you
I
and
think at that point,
Nate had walked over by where we had parked, right?
well, me, Nate, Terry, and who else was with us?
Ashley.
Patty? Ashley, right.
Ashley. Yeah.
Yep.
We walked.
Okay.
The three of us walked up to the gate because you were going over to get a water
Right.
out of your car.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were thirsty. We went over to get a water. Ashley and Terry went with us.
Mm-hmm.
We left them at the gate and started walking up the gated road up toward the road.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
And the women came back to camp. I remember
we
that.
broke off at that point. The
Yeah.
women came back, and Nate was like, let's go up here a little bit and just stand here,
Mhm.
So we were standing probably about 30 yards from your truck,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, and just standing there quietly in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
And we're facing the road to come in. Your truck's behind us, and we hear, right, almost like,
Well, I felt it first. And I keep saying, like, when you're at the grocery store and somebody walks up behind you,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't necessarily hear them, but you felt them come up behind you.
right.
That's what happened. When I turned around, I expected to see Terry, because that's the size of impression I got. And then we heard 2 feet shuffle or whatever on the dirt path that we were on. Okay, that's when we both turned around.
Well, I noticed that, right, and that feeling that you got is funny because I sensed it too, because I feel like we were
around.
turning around at the same time that it had made, let's just say, whatever footing it had, crunched in the gravel as it pivoted.
Yep.
Right? And next thing you know, but what I saw in that moment didn't look like a Bigfoot. It looked like a dark line I didn't see limbs. I didn't see anything. I just saw this kind of dark line.
It looked
And-
like TV static almost.
Yeah, like a grayish.
It was grainy and gray, yeah.
Right.
But what I saw an arm and a leg
You saw an arm and a leg.
when it went.
Okay.
Because I turned around. I was already turning around to see her, and it disappeared behind
Right.
me.
And that's,
Well,
is that when I had walked up to get to my truck?
Well, at
Seconds later, you
at-
opened your door.
At
Yeah.
that moment, yeah, you had just reached like the back end of your truck and was getting ready to go into it.
Yeah.
And we stood there and we had observed sound coming from where it had darted. This guy
Keep going.
was out there, bud.
Keep going.
We had observed sounds coming from, I can't remember exactly what sounds. I know it was almost like a knocking sound or some sort of like a limb breaking or
Yeah.
something like that. And that was more towards the road.
You may have to unplug it and plug it back in.
Sorry, guys.
That's all right.
Sorry.
And then from there, Eric was in his truck and we called him over.
Mm-hmm.
And we all stood there watching, right? Or just listening,
Right.
kind of telling Eric what had happened in that moment. And then you guys headed back towards. I don't know if all three of us had heard anything while we were standing there. I don't think we did.
No.
No. And then you guys had headed back towards the fire
Right.
and everybody else. And I just stood there quiet again, listening. And I had heard movement going back towards the wood line and the fire area. And then I heard behind it movement. Slow, methodical movement.
Wow.
And after that, I had gone back down to the fire. And
And then not long after that, we split into 3 groups, right? You took a team back down the trail.
right,
I took a team up the road and made a right, went up the hill a little bit, and there was another trail off to the left where there was a gated trail. So we stopped at the gate, kind of set up a little, satellite camp there. And Nathan was back at the fire ring with the rest-
Ashley and Terry.
And Terry. And so Ashley had set her digital recorder down on a log, right? I don't know how, we did some back and forth provocations.
Yeah, I think we did.
And my team heard a couple of knocks coming from our left-hand side, which would have been further up the hill towards number 4. Okay. And then you guys had a knock from.
No, that was probably the best home run knock I've ever heard.
You went, holy shit!
Yeah, that's what everybody kept saying when they heard the recording, because I haven't been out for a while too. It kind of it took me back, man. It was right there, and it was
Oh, yeah.
loud.
She
It was
got it.
freaking loud.
Yeah.
yeah. And there was that the one that she had recorded and shared?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I have it right here.
yeah.
Yeah, man.
It's loud, and it's a shame that I was so
Prepared?
unprepared for that, because I talked over 3 more knocks,
Yeah.
and they were good ones.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that first one, that rattled me. I
So-
haven't heard that for a while.
If nothing else, just that night alone,
Yeah.
right?
That
Well,
As
I mean-
organizers is a success.
So my group,
all good.
when we walked back there, didn't really encounter, maybe heard some kind of movement, didn't see anything. At one point, we were experiencing a weird temperature change, like just from like one step to another,
Okay.
temperature change in this one spot.
Wow.
And we were also smelling some kind of cantaloupe type smell, kind of like an overripe cantaloupe sweetness.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was pretty interesting. But the ladies at camp, I don't know, I think they were hearing probably, I don't remember if any stories from them at all. But at the fire, I remember Terry saying, after everybody had left, it was myself, Skylar, Nate, and Terry,
Yep.
and we were hearing things around us. I was hearing. Well, I think Nate was said that you had heard something come out of the brush as almost as something of sweeping out of the brush or
Yeah.
something at one point.
Yeah. It sounded like somebody walked through the branches and they left them, they just right
Just
past them.
swept against them,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And just multiple things like around us while we were sitting at the fire.
Right.
And then they went to bed, and it was just Skylar and I sitting there.
Yeah.
And
Skylar was the bait.
Yes, he was.
it,
In that little tent right there.
yeah,
That tent right here.
yeah. So, yeah, at that point, Skylar, we have to wrap? Like,
Well, I was trying to get Eric's attention to kind of like, yeah, I mean, we're at like 18 and a half minutes. You guys have been talking. It's kind of like really long. We kind of like,
Yeah, I want to get to Skylar getting hit in the back.
yeah.
Let's get to that point and
Yeah,
we'll take
yeah.
a break.
All right. So, Skylar, he, we're sitting there, and it feels like there's this magical whirlwind around us. Like the wind's blowing, there's things falling out of the trees, but there's also things that seem like they're being thrown in our direction, right? And at one point, Skylar, I remember it's almost like the wind kicked up, but like not in a like a heavy
Yeah.
way, but it made us both pay attention behind us, right? And right in that moment, I feel a thud on the ground next to my foot, and then something hits it.
Yeah.
And like I'm in the same exact chair, and my foot's kind of like this. So I look on the ground, and there's an acorn, and I'm like, wait a minute. That couldn't have made the impact that it had on my foot like it did. And I look just behind my foot, and there's a good size, I have it in my car, there's a rock,
Yeah.
about this size, and it must have been the culprit. So something was thrown, I believe.
Yeah.
Like I truly believe something hit my foot. That rock hit my foot from behind us. And
And then you, not long after that, retired to your vehicle, right?
well, yeah, no, we were provocating vocally
Okay.
around the fire,
Uh-huh.
and at one point I had said something out loud, and I hear in a response this knocking noise, right?
Oh,
It
yeah.
was like a boom, 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 boom. It was like really fast-paced, like knocking noise. So I said, again, I don't understand that form of communication. And, can you come closer? Just provocating, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I stop, and it does it again. A third time, it does it again, right? So we're just playing around. We're clacking rocks. We're getting responses after, a few minutes. I pick up my drum. I start playing my drum. And he, starts kind of falling out and actually falls asleep or heavy meditation for a bit. And I stop playing my drum. All of a sudden, he pops up, like, startled. And he's, like, looking behind him. And he's like, something just hit my back. Something just slapped the back of my chair.
Pretty hard.
I mean, what did
too.
you feel?
I felt like almost a handprint smacked the back of my shoulder through the chair almost, but like it didn't really feel like it came through the chair. It felt like it actually hit my back, and it just kind of startled me up and made me kind of like
Pay attention.
look around and pay attention more. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I just got a feeling of just not fall asleep for some reason.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know, it was very strange. Very
So,
strange.
like, the slap that you felt, like, if I were to go like that to Eric, would it be, like, the same type
it was
of
like
force?
a little bit more of a force, but
little
not
bit
by
more of
much.
a force.
Yeah.
Smack me again.
Smack me again.
Oh, yeah.
I'd say closer to
Kinda
that.
like that? Yeah.
Closer to
And
that.
what, it hit you through the back of the canvas of the chair?
That's what at first it felt like, but like after I actually thought about it and like not had the adrenaline going through, like what it felt like is actually just hitting my jacket pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I mean, the way I was kind of sitting like this, so it kind of felt like it hit like right there. Kinda
Okay.
Got me on like the side of the shoulder.
Yeah. And this is what we had wanted to do last time we were there, but nobody stayed at the camp
Right.
overnight. We all went back to base camp. This time, remember, we said, hey, let's have some bait.
It was a great
Well,
time.
after that, yeah, I mean, we were hearing stuff. I was hearing, I heard thuds on the ground. Boom, boom,
I should have stayed.
boom. And then like a snap, and it was like, all right, you know, and it was like ground shaking, those little ground shaking thuds
Yeah.
that you know,
Oh,
you
yeah.
feel once in a while.
Mhm.
And then after that, I mean, he was like, initially, he has banana tent out. He's like, I'm staying in there. And then after all this stuff happened, you know, he was like, maybe, you know, you got room in your front seat over there, you know. But it was back and forth.
yeah,
And then
for a
I
little
was
while.
like, man, he said, you know, the car's right here. You may regret not staying out here, you know.
And he did it.
And he did, man.
I think that's all the words I needed is just to hear
Yeah.
you might regret. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're right. I'll stay in the
Yeah.
tent.
You know?
Nice.
And it was pretty interesting. I mean, I thought I heard some noises throughout the night, but didn't peek out to look at all. Just kind of stayed
Focused
put.
on
Yep.
Not scaring the crap out of yourself.
And as we like to say, thanks for taking one for the team.
That's right.
Oh,
Right?
anytime for that.
Yeah, no, dude's got balls bigger than fucking
Brass ball.
Yeah,
He
totally,
does.
totally.
That's
I was
good
so
stuff.
impressed with
All right.
everything that happened there. You know that he was out.
That's
you know,
cool.
being a couple hundred yards away from us.
Oh yeah.
So Saturday night we're on right now, right?
And we touched a little bit about it in the beginning with Heather hearing the growls
Here in the
behind
grounds
my
at base
tent.
camp, right?
Okay, and then you guys talked about walking down the trail and how Nathan was
Got
feeling.
disoriented. and
Yeah.
whatnot. Yeah.
And we had several participants of the expedition stay back that night.
Right.
Yep, we had a few guys that were kind of hanging out to themselves, and then we had ourselves, me, Terry, Nate, and then Heather was in the tent, and she was out with us hanging for a while too.
Right.
But then, yeah, it was at that point where she went in the tent, and then didn't Terry go to bed at that point too? And it was just you and I when we heard the growls.
Yeah.
Then Nate and I took a walk, and that's when we had gone back to the spot where we were talking about earlier, where people were getting, you know, physically
Disoriented.
Yes, disoriented and stuff, and that had happened to Nate as well. And to bring it along a little quicker, we came back to camp after that, really with no other incident. Sat around for a little bit, and then he went to bed, and I was up and about.
Well, I saw that white light straight across the fire, and I couldn't reproduce it either. Oh, that's right. It started like a pin, and it got to maybe the size of a, I don't know, maybe like a quarter, and then it just disappeared. Like as fast as it could do that, it disappeared.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was,
it was LED white, bright. It was like,
and it was it looking into the path,
yeah.
but it would be beyond the path itself, right? Into the woods a little bit.
Right.
And that was right behind the path behind your tent.
And
Okay.
while that was happening, the horses were making noise.
Okay. Wow.
Yep. The horses were kind of
So much.
getting a little riled
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Um,
Much.
Well then,
We take
then-
them to our best spots, man.
exactly. And then after that, Nate had gone and he retired, and I went and I took a little walk and made a little gifting spot.
Right.
I had taken the leftover onions, which you know would definitely draw something in with the smell. I
Absolutely.
would hope.
Yeah.
An orange and an apple, and I set up a little gifting spot, not too far beyond where we were camping, and I stood there for a little while, quiet, and suddenly I heard a little motion in the woods. Don't know what it was, obviously, but then I start to walk back after a while, back towards camp, and I hear something coming through, hits the ground, and kind of probably gets within 5 feet of me. And I was like, it jolted me for a second. It took me off guard. It startled me, and I was like, what was that? And then I hear like a snap,
Okay.
probably within 20 yards behind it. And then
This is
I was
behind my
like,
tent.
all right. And I'm standing there and I'm like trying to take in what just happened. I was like, really? Did this just happen? And this is pretty much coming from the spot where he said he saw the light.
Which is
So-
right behind our tents.
Right. So I have my headphones on, I'm listening, and I hear you guys start pulling in. I see your headlights. I was like, oh man. And I'm trying to observe, but I know you guys are coming. I'm like, oh boy, those lights, anything that's going to there and moving around is going to hunker down, right? So, whatever. I didn't hear anything else, but then I was like, these guys are coming in.
Couldn't
They
resist.
have no idea. They think I'm sleeping,
Couldn't resist.
Couldn't resist.
That was pretty
So they get in, they get out of their truck, and
Saying goodnight.
yep, they're just talking a little bit, and I go. It was much better than that.
Yeah, it was a good one.
It was a really
It was a good one. And
Yeah.
I looked at Patty. I said, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
That's all I hear. Oh man.
That would have been the icing on the cake.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
But that's not the icing on the cake, actually, because I had taken a couple of teams out with me. And the idea was we went to the high tension pole lines. Okay, and the idea was to have 3 teams at 3 different elevations. All right,
And the high tension lines.
at the high tension lines, and so we'd be able to maintain good contact and do provocations along 3 separate spots and hopefully draw something in. So we get there, and the problem was that once we got set up, the team up on the ridge, they started moving towards where they were supposed to get to, and the trail went off to the right, and the pole lines turned as well. Okay, so they radioed me and said, if we can't get to where we need to be, we're hiking back down to the vehicles. Okay,
Right.
I was originally going to set up a team down in the valley, and then take another team up the opposite ridge with me. And I remember Nathan talking about rattlesnakes and cougars and shit, and I'm like, you know what?
And tigers and bears.
Oh my! And I said, let me just hang down here with these guys, And so we set up a little circle, right? And we had the K2 meter going, and wound up having a little slight conversation with a potential spirit. But we were hearing movement
Oh yeah, hearing us a few movements. Some
and
noises.
mumbling, right?
Yep, and mumbling.
Okay.
Dog barking, but
It's funny though, because I did I think a knock to start off, and the other team up on the ridge couldn't hear it.
Okay.
I could barely hear their response. Now we were able to maintain radio contact, which was good, but we weren't able to hear each other's provocations. Okay. So, I mean, like I said, I had done a couple of calls, and we had some potential. At one point, I thought I heard a vehicle coming, and I said to the group, I said, "Hey, I hear a car coming," and nothing showed up. Right?
yep. I remember hearing that too.
Yeah, and then there was also some of the people had heard, because a couple of people had walked down the road a little bit, and they were kind of talking and disrupting a little bit because you were listening through the headphones.
Mike was listening through the headphones.
Mike was
at the
listening
time.
through the headphones, right? And it kept kind of disrupting and stepping on the audio. Okay. At one point, then Rob and his team radioed me, saying we're going to move down the road a little bit further. And I said, okay, we're gonna hang for a few more minutes and then head down to the reservoir. Okay. So he said, copy that, we'll meet you there. So after a few more minutes, we weren't getting anything. I said, all right, let's head down.
Right.
We get down to the reservoir and kind of turn around and park along the edge there where the beaver trail goes down. Okay. And again, there's all these little names, like, up in that area, like Woman's Hollow. That's where I'm going, But Beaver Trail, I'm down, okay?
Damn right.
So we were just about to head down, and Rob and his team drove past, and I radioed him, hey, you just passed us, He came back, he parked, and we all head down. There's this little pine grove near the reservoir, and we kind of set up our stuff there. I set the mic stick down on a tree, and we walk out to the reservoir, and the water level is really low.
Yeah.
So there's tons of footprints in the mud. So we're looking, we're checking tracks. I did find a couple of what looked like juvenile footprint impressions that were not, there was no arch. Okay?
Yeah, real
Flat,
straight,
toe compression, you know what I mean? So I'm showing the group about this. One of the guys fell in the water, couple of other people thought they saw potential track impressions, and I went over and looked at them. I said, no, there's an arch. I'm thinking this is probably human. Okay. At that point, I did a call, and from across the reservoir, we heard a response,
Oh yeah.
and it didn't sound like yotes. Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't have my mic stick. I left it back in the pine grove. Okay, on a stump.
But it was recording.
But it was recording, okay. Waited a few minutes, did another call, and another response came from the opposite side, from behind us. Two distinct calls, howls, okay. And at that point, and there was some discussion whether or not it was coyotes or what direction it came from, you know what I mean? So I said, well, let me go get my mic stick. I went and retrieved it, did another call. We didn't hear anything after that. So again, eventually it was like 2:30, I don't know, 3 o'clock, and we decided to head back to base camp. So I was excited that we potentially found tracks and may have recorded something.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know for sure, but I did get home and listen to the audio, and I picked it up. Even though the mics were aimed down, these Kimbrough audio, thanks Charles, really do the trick.
Yeah.
And I captured them.
Good,
So
they're good stuff.
I'll insert them somewhere here in the video. I'll tell you what, man, it's clear that it's not yotes.
Yeah.
I'd have to say, and I'm going to have to send it to our friend Managa Gila to analyze. But overall, I have to say, and then coming back and you scaring us with that smack,
Yeah.
and that's a nice way to end the expedition.
That's good.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And then Sunday morning, we kind of wrapped things up and packed up camp and headed home.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, you kind of wanted to go back and rent one of those campsites.
I did. I wanted to
spend
stay
another night.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know. It was, there was a magical feel to that expedition. Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, to go back to the reservoir,
Mm-hmm.
where you are on that trail, the Beaver Trail, is probably, if you would bushwhack, 1.5 miles, 2 miles from where I got roared at
Right.
while we were
Okay.
camping.
Which could have been a dog man
Yeah,
because of the way it sounded.
It scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Nice. And not far from where I recorded those howls 2 years before that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I gotta say, we took the people to the right area and it didn't disappoint.
There's audio on the Bfro website of them at
Yes.
That
At that reservoir.
when they're, I think it was a police officer was hunkered down in her car,
Yep.
and she was watching it
Mm-hmm.
come towards them.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty.
At the same reservoir you guys were at that night. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's funny because when we were there at a previous expedition, it had been windy.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to hear anything or to record anything. This night it was completely quiet.
Right. Right.
And like I said, the water level was way down. So we were able to really look at the ground and see a lot of
It was
tracks and
full
stuff.
moon
so.
too.
Yeah.
And a full moon, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, Art and I have talked about whether or not it's better to be out at a full moon or a new moon for activity.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, the difference between activity while the clouds were in front of the moon and when they weren't was completely different.
Yep.
Because when the cloud went over, there was all kinds of shit happening.
Right.
It was quiet. quiet.
Quiet it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because the Pine Barrens expedition I had at a new moon,
Yeah.
but I scheduled the PA one during a full moon to get that contrast.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you got it.
Ha!
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was proven.
And that makes sense. I mean, it follows, daytime, there's really no activity,
Right.
but nighttime in the dark, that's when things typically
and
occur.
And Friday night, it was that obvious that we all mentioned it a couple times.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, I had
Overall.
noticed that on other expeditions I had been on, where you could kind of hear traffic from where we were camping.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like, and what I noticed in listening to the recordings, that every time a car went by, I would hear within the sound of the car crunching,
Mm-hmm.
getting closer to where we were camping.
Right.
The car would go by, it would stop, right? And then it was almost like something had moved with the sound, hunkered down, another car would go by.
Taking advantage
It would
of
move
the-
again,
Yeah.
right?
Other white noise. Right?
Yeah, yep.
So,
So,
hey man, we got that going on here tonight too, so we could be in for some
Yeah.
added, unexpected activity,
well, that's what we're here for.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And with Tyler in his pup tent and me in mine, we might get that.
Oh yeah.
What'd you call him?
He's a
pump
Tyler.
Did I say Tyler?
You did.
Tyler. Yeah.
I'm
I
sorry.
just let it go.
With Skylar in his pup tent, and me in my cozy Kelty. And hey, who knows? We can have somebody, pay us a visit
Oh yeah.
at the early morning hours.
Hey, that's totally
Okay.
okay with me.
Yeah. So,
I'm sleeping on my air mattress in the car.
yeah, I second that. Not his air mattress. So.
No. Well, hey, we are a close-knit group, and
Not that close.
but yeah. To wrap things up, I just want to say how happy I am to be out here with you guys, and it's really nothing better than squatching in the forest with you all. And
Yeah.
thank you all for tuning in and checking us out. Hopefully, we'll have more to report after tonight.
And I want to thank our cameraman.
Yeah.
Big thanks to Art.
Yes.
Big hand. So we're going to cut this light ring now and go back to stealth mode.
Yeah.
And I got the LDR going. We got the fire going, and I'm getting
We
the
all
wrap it
have-
up signal from
No. Smoke.
smoke.
Smoke signal.
Smoke signal. So what do we say?
Hey, thanks for
Thanks for
squatching.
squatching.
I smell a skunk. Seriously.
That's just Brian.
No, that could be something else though.
That was
Yeah.
close.
Good.
That was close.
Close enough. And why did spray?
Wow. I'm fast.
All
Yeah.
right.
Serious here. Let's get some good footage.
There we go.
Where are you, Nate? You behind me?
Oh no, I was not in the picture.
I can't even. I couldn't even see you over there. All right.
Well, it's camouflage. Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
Got a nice bowl in the picture.
Wait a second. Let me reframe.
CBD. I'd like to thank our partnered process, CBD suppliers.
Like I'm getting them in the picture, and all I'm getting is your heads. Or I tilt the camera to get you both in, but that's kind of like MTV.
How about I stand up and Nate sits down?
That might work.
All right.
Skylar turned his shoes on too.
Turn my shoes on.
All right. We're good. Turn off my light.
What is that shape on there?
It's words.
What is it?
It's you ever hear the skateboarding brand Thrasher?
No.
Yeah, it's a skateboarding brand called Thrasher.
We're not cool.
Yeah. No, you're cool. You're just cool in a different type of way.
Thank you. All right. How we doing? We good?
We're doing good.
Okay,
All right.
we're rolling. So
Thanks for checking out this episode of Squatch Talks Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, and give us a like. And stay tuned for more exciting stories on Squatch Talks.